Well, welcome to Christian Answers. This is Pastor Jeff Short, and today we're going to be talking about an article by a leftist evangelical, a social justice warrior, SJW, woke, so-called woke evangelical, the kind that are basically running things now at Wheaton College and Fuller Seminary and so many of the evangelical institutions. Leftist-leaning evangelical who doesn't seem to grasp that our very churches and our very conservative form of Christianity, the biblical Christianity, is under assault. They make light of that. His name is Ed Stetzer, and he's affiliated with the Southern Baptist Convention, and his name is popping up all over the place, and he's trying to explain things to Christian evangelicals as to how he believes we need to get away from the legacy of Donald Trump. And he's one of these people who was a never Trumper. He never liked Donald Trump. And there are a lot of evangelicals this way. And this is part of the problem in our Bible-believing Christian community today. One of the problems in our Bible-believing Christian community today is that there are these never Trumpers. What they do is they don't like Donald Trump's personality. And why don't they like Donald Trump's personality? Because they are raised and function in churches that niceness is the number one virtue. You have to be nice. You have to talk always nice. You have to be sweet and kind and jovial and winsome. You have to be a winsome pastor. And you can't teach anything that's negative or might scare someone or might make them face the reality of the situation. And so in these nice churches where nothing negative or no talk of judgment or hell or repentance or any of those harsh things, you have to be a sweet, kind, just loving person. And you can win the world over by being nice. And that's what they believe. And so they never want to say anything bad about the world or the secular society because those are the people they're trying to win for Jesus. And so this win them with kindness, kill them with kindness kind of philosophy is so prevalent in evangelical churches today that it basically eliminates a quarter to a half of all the teachings in the New Testament where Jesus talks tough to sin and sinful people and calls them to repent. Well, Ed Stetzer is one of those individuals who is now going to tell the evangelical world that we have to get away from Donald Trump and his legacy because it's going to destroy Christianity. He's one of these people that we're saying running around for the last 4 years. The Christians' connection to Donald Trump will set Christianity back for 50 years. And all of these, prophecies about the demise of evangelicalism because they voted for Donald Trump. Well, here he is after the election fraud and the election was stolen. And after all of the irregularities and voting hanky-pank that occurred in the swing states, Joseph Biden is now the president. We all agree that he is now the president. By hook or by crook, by stolen, by theft, he is now the president. He got there because the system doesn't know how to deal with challenges to the election integrity, doesn't know how to deal with them. Courts won't take the cases. Everyone's reluctant to, we want to stay out of the election process. We don't want to question the election. That's questioning our democracy. So the lesson is if you can rip off voters within the first week after the election and nothing happens, you're good to go. And so that's basically the philosophy. So Ed Stetzer now, who voted for Biden, I'm sure, or definitely didn't vote for Trump, is part of the Wheaton College establishment. Wheaton College, by the way, as far as the students, they voted basically for Biden. A majority voted for Biden, Joe Biden, pro-abortion Biden, pro-transgender Biden, pro-gay rights Biden, pro-anti-Christian bakery uh, who wants to force bakers to bake cakes for trans couples and so forth. That Joe Biden, yeah, that one. Wheaton College overwhelmingly voted for him over bombastic, crude, rude, blunt Donald Trump. And this is what now we're going to get from the Biden evangelicals and the Never Trumpers. We're going to get a lecture now on why we need to get away from Donald Trump and everything he stood for as quickly as possible. And so here we have a letter from Ed Stetzer printed in USA Today. So let me put that on screen. Printed in USA Today. Of course, evangelicals don't usually get print time in major media outlets, but here we go. Ed Stetzer gets a whole column. Why? I wonder why they gave him space. Maybe because what he's saying they like. The secular, humanist, anti-Christian mainstream media, they love what Ed Stetzer's saying. Why do they love what he's saying? Because he's saying what they are saying and copying what they are telling people today. And so why not print a Christian opinion that has been co-opted to basically regurgitate the mainstream media narrative anyway? So this is what Ed Stetzer's saying. He's saying evangelicals face a reckoning. Donald Trump and the future of our faith. We must live up to our calling as evangelicals to proclaim Jesus Christ to the world rather than betray him to sustain worldly power. Well, first of all, nobody was betraying Jesus Christ to sustain worldly power. We were just voting for the most biblical in policy candidate. That's all. Oh, we didn't want to see the LGBTQ agenda pushed on our children and our families for the next 4 years. We wanted to see more of the Judeo-Christian tradition carry on rather than have a socialist revolutionary takeover. So it's not all this dramatic, we betray Jesus Christ for Donald Trump. No, we just wanted a president who didn't attack the Judeo-Christian ethic and worldview, and that's why we voted for him. Don't try to make it more dramatic than that. Yes, Donald Trump was rude, he was crude, he was bombastic, and all the things that you can say that you don't like about his personality. But when he actually got down to leading and implementing policy, very solid at all. And now that you get the nice old man Joe Biden who wouldn't talk like Trump talks, you're going to get the devil's policies. So he's nice guy if you talk to him, but when he gets back to the office and the people he surrounds him with, including this transgender, this dude who is acting like a woman, he appointed him, the dude who looks like a woman, tries to look like a woman, doesn't look like a woman to me, but he says he's a woman. He is now the health secretary. So you're going to get more of that, and that's, I guess, what Ed Stetzer wants. He wants to have the Judeo-Christian worldview smashed before our eyes for the next 4 years and beyond. But at least it's not Trump, according to Ed Stetzer. Well, let's read on. No one likes to admit that they were fooled. It's tough to admit they were wrong. Now, many evangelicals are seeing President Donald Trump for who he is, but more need to see what he has done to us. What is there that we now see that we didn't know all about Donald Trump in the beginning? Oh, was it to blaming him for the protests that got out of hand at the Capitol? Oh, that's the mainstream media narrative that we're supposed to believe, that Donald Trump led an insurrection and Donald Trump staged a coup d'etat against the Capitol to try to take over the country. Yeah, that's the mainstream media lie and propaganda, and it looks like Ed Stetzer is buying right into that. This man, this Wheaton College administrator and Southern Baptist Convention bigwig, he is trying to tell us that, that mainstream media narrative that Donald Trump was leading an insurrection against the government. Yeah, that's all true, according to Ed Stetzer. No, we're not that dumb. We don't believe that Donald Trump led any kind of such thing. And we don't believe the mainstream media reports about actually what happened. We believe that there was a protest that got out of hand partly because of Antifa and other anarchy agitators were there, and the police just basically let them into the White House. And then now they're blamed, the Trump supporters are blamed that it's a coup. No, don't think so, Ed Stetzer. But this is a great way to get into a mainstream media outlet. They'll let you write this stuff all day long as you don't say anything good about Donald Trump. It's time for an evangelical reckoning. Oh, that sounds dramatic. Let's find out what he's talking about. I'm an evangelical, like about a quarter of the United States population. Evangelicals believe in the good news of the gospel of Jesus, died on the cross for our sins and in our place, and we need to tell the world about that. Great. Exactly. That's what an evangelical is. But that's not what most people are talking about today. You see, white evangelicals embrace the president, some begrudgingly, some enthusiastically, because he addressed many of their concerns. That's right. That's right. And we do it again. I do it again. I do it every time against the alternatives. What was our alternative back in 2016? Hillary Clinton, pro-abortion Hillary Clinton, who sees no problem with aborting a baby, even up to the point of birth of that baby. So you have this huge baby ready to be born into the world, and Hillary Clinton says, abort it, abort it, abort it. Yeah, that was all our alternative in 2016. That's why we voted for Trump. Now in 2020, you have Joe Biden, who says to an 8-year-old, who says this little boy, 8-year-old boy, wants to transgender transition into a little girl. And Joe Biden says, well, that's great. I think that little boy should be able to do that. He should be able to do what he wants to do at 8 years old. That's Joe Biden. So, yeah, we voted for Trump a second time against that kind of opposition candidate, Joe Biden, and we do it again. No apologies here, Ed Stetzer. I don't know what you're looking for. And he addressed our concerns. That's an understatement. He addressed our concerns. He was a champion for the pro-life cause. And so no apologies there for voting for Trump. Many evangelicals and leaders invested money, time, and conviction toward the promise of making America great again. Okay, great. In turn, Donald Trump made good on these investments from an evangelical perspective. Great. Fantastic. Most evangelicals, me included, are grateful for the Supreme Court justices he appointed and some of the religious liberty concerns he addressed. His anti-abortion stance surprised many, again, me included. And for that, I was thankful. Oh, really? Were you thankful? You're thankful enough to run him down and try to get Biden elected? Doesn't sound like you're thankful. In other words, you're saying that you're grateful for these things for Trump, but boy, am I happy he's gone. That's what you're saying. Those don't make sense. That doesn't make sense. You're trying to be an evangelical who really is thankful for Donald Trump, but then you're going to bash him and say he's not fit for office. No, you're not going to fool people with that. That's totally disingenuous. Nevertheless, most of that is in jeopardy now because Trump is who many of us warned other evangelicals he was. Okay, so let's see what Ed Stetzer warned us about. We reap what Trump has sown. He has burned down the Republican Party, emboldened white supremacists, mainstreamed conspiracy theorists, and more. He burned down Republican Party? You mean the weak, sappy, ineffective, feckless Republican establishment that never did anything to oppose the radical leftist agenda? He put a finger on that and called that out and opposed that. Yeah, great. It needed to go. Emboldened white supremacists. Lie. Totally a lie. Trump is not a white supremacist. That's the mainstream media narrative, Ed, that you're buying into. He is not a white supremacist. He doesn't believe in the wokeness, the SJW, what you're teaching at Wheaton College now. He doesn't embrace quota systems where you systematically establish racism as a means of correcting some injustices. And it says mainstream conspiracy theories. How so? What conspiracy theories did he mainstream? Yet of greater concern for me is the trail of destruction he has left within the evangelical movement. Oh, he's torn up the church, tempted by power and trapped within a culture war theology. Too many evangelicals tied their fate to a man who embodied neither their faith nor the vision of political character. He mentioned a cultural war theology. In other words, to Ed Stetzer, we're not at war with the culture. The culture's friendly. It's just a great culture to raise your children in. Public schools are just great. They just teach us the truth. They're not trying to bash Christianity or the Judeo-Christian ethic. They're just teaching us the truth. And no, that rosy-colored picture of culture is a lie. And Ed Stetzer knows that Donald Trump did not peddle conspiracy theories. He knows that he did not stir up the culture wars. Guess what? The culture war was here before Donald Trump ever took office. So you're going to blame the culture war on him. You're going to blame the battle between good and evil on him. Francis Schaeffer was talking about the culture war long before Ed Stetzer was even knew about Donald Trump. So we can't blame all of this stuff on Donald Trump, but the never-Trumpers always do. As a result, we are finally witnessing an evangelical reckoning. Oh boy, I thought it was the race reckoning that we're facing, Ed Stetzer. I thought you were talking about evangelicals are facing a reckoning toward race. You know, slavery's been over for 125, 150 years. 50 years of civil rights legislation. You can hardly find a racist if you go out looking for one today. And he's one of the people that have said that evangelicals are now facing a race reckoning, as if we're back in the days of slavery. Yeah, you could say that back 150 years ago. You might have even been able to say it 100 years ago. But today, 2021, no. That is a fake social justice movement. BLM is a fake social justice movement. There is no systemic racism. Policemen are not hunting down black men to kill them. And I'm quoting LeBron James and the BLM movement. They're not doing these things, and yet Ed Stetzer buys into that narrative, just hook, line, and sinker. So, yeah, I understand why USA Today will publish his articles, because he's basically saying everything they are saying. For years, we've been talking about a coming evangelical reckoning. A flood of books, articles, conferences, many of which I wrote and participated in, have warned of the approaching storm clouds for the evangelical movement. Okay, yes, you have been. This reckoning is here. Americans in the world have the right to ask us some hard questions. Us. Some of us were vocal, often early, about the dangers of Trumpism. Oh, the terrible dangers of Trumpism. We won't talk about the dangers of the leftist socialist takeover because that's not politically correct. So we have to talk about Trump. That's what Ed Stetzer is going to talk about. It was costly. As we sort through the coming months and years, we must be clear on 3 reasons why we have arrived at this point. First, far too many tolerated egregious behavior. The past decade has often offered near daily examples of people co-opting the gospel for their sinful ends. Racism, nationalism, sexism, and a host of other sins have found purchase within the evangelical movement in both overt and subtle expressions. Racism is not a major issue, period. It's a fake news narrative that is not a major problem in the U.S. in the year 2021. Despite what Black Lives Matter says, but despite what Antifa rioters are saying, despite what the entire radical leftist Joe Biden Democratic Party is saying, racism is not a crisis in the United States. If racism were as bad as everybody on the left and even Ed Stetzer is talking about, there wouldn't have been a black president for 8 years. we would have concrete, specific examples of overt racism if this were a problem. It is not a problem. Next case, nationalism. This also is a fake news item. Fake news item. Nobody is talking about um, American nationalism. We're saying we want to control our borders. We don't want everyone and their uncle coming into our country without identification and without some vetting, because as we know, there are terrorists, there are drug cartels, there are all kinds of bad actors wanting to get in the United States and to stir up trouble and just basically destroy the country. Yeah, we have a right to our borders. Nationalism is not an example here. Sexism. Um, just because evangelicals didn't want to buy into the feminist movement, we don't buy into the Me Too movement that says believe all women. Women are fallen just like men. Men and women are both fallen in the sins of Adam. We don't need to act like women are the ones who always tell the truth. They can never lie. And we need to bypass due process and all these other things because simply a woman has accused a man of something. So, yeah, we don't buy into that. See, Ed Stetzer is actually got a pair of lenses across his eyes, and these lenses make up his worldview, and it's not a genuine Christian worldview. It's a leftist, it's a socialist, democratic, Joe Biden worldview. He's not talking a lot about Joe Biden, but he's saying the same criticisms as the left is saying, and so that's probably why he's got article space in USA Today. And he probably will be on CNN too and all of the other mainstream medias, because if he keeps spouting what they're spouting, yeah, they'll love him. They love him now. As evangelicals, we have to stop saying this isn't who we are. This is who we are, and these are our besetting sins. However, this isn't who we have to be. No, we don't have to say we're racist, because we're not. We don't have to say we're nationalists, because we're not. And we don't have to say we're sexist, because we're not. We don't have to confess sins that aren't our own sins. Second, far too many failed to live up to their promise of speaking truth to power. During the 2016 election and at many points since, evangelicals justified their full-throated support by promising to be a check on Trump's character. What has become apparent is that this promise was hollow. Too few were willing to speak out regularly and often couched their criticism so much it lacked any weight. When evangelicals finally had access to the White House, they seemed unable or unwilling to use their prophetic voice to speak truth to power. That may be true in many cases, but it wasn't true in all cases. I have criticized Donald Trump for not eliminating all funding to Planned Parenthood. He did cut Planned Parenthood funding a little bit, but he and the Republicans, it's not just Trump, but it's he and the Republicans and the House Republicans at one point in his 4 years, they had a majority government and they didn't use it to cut Planned Parenthood funding. And so I criticize him, and we also criticize him in other instances. So this is false. This is not true. This is a lie. And so he's quoting Chuck Colson here, saying that there were yes men around Nixon and so on and so forth. Finally, all of us have failed to foster healthy political discipleship. The foundation of our reckoning was laid far before Trump. Committed to reaching the world, the evangelical movement has emphasized the evangelistic and pietistic elements of the mission. However, it has failed to connect this mission to justice and politics. No, we shouldn't go and buy into this fake social justice movement that Ed Stetzer is committed to. We don't have to march with BLM, because BLM is a leftist socialist organization pumping a false narrative. This is not a racist nation. Flat out lie that it's a racist nation. But Ed Stetzer wants us to somehow confess that as a sin when it isn't a sin. in this nation. It's a sin to be racist, but we're not racist. We don't go around um, uh, telling black people they're not fully human, and we don't do that to any nationality. And there was a time in this country when that was the case. After the Civil War, for many decades, there was outright discrimination, and by the grace of God, we've been able to eliminate that. So just because we don't grovel and we don't kneel down before minorities and kiss their boots, it doesn't mean we're racist. And at Stetzer and Wheaton College and Fuller Seminary and a lot of these evangelical institutions have basically taken a worldly view of this and has capitulated to the culture. At the root of these three causes lies our inability to live up to our calling as evangelicals, to righteously, prophetically, compassionately proclaim Jesus Christ. Okay, we want to proclaim Jesus Christ, but we would like to stand for righteousness in our culture. We don't want abortion. We don't want transgenderism. We don't want gay marriage. We don't want the government taking on a godlike position in our society. We don't want our public schools indoctrinating children to become secular humanists. And to blame this on evangelicals supporting Trump is just so silly. It's not only silly, it's evil. It's bearing false witness against your brother. It is accusing your brother. It's doing the work of Satan. Satan is accuser of the brother. You are doing the role of a Satan. Satan in Hebrew, the word Satan, means accuser. Ed Stetzer is being a Satan. He's being a Satan. He is accusing his brothers. He is bearing false witness against his brothers by accusing evangelicals who voted and supported Trump for 4 years of being wrong in their doing that. No, we were right in supporting Donald Trump. We didn't want this culture to become a socialist, anti-Christian, atheistic, secular, socialist society. We don't want that. We are given one vote, and we are given the ability to voice our concern and express our freedom of speech. And we used it to push and work for another 4 years of Donald Trump. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I'm sad that Donald Trump lost. I'm sad that Joe Biden is now the president. And I do not apologize for anything that I've said or done in respect to Donald Trump. I am not apologizing for accusing the Democrat machines in key states for perpetrating voter fraud. I am not apologizing for that. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a fact of history. And so, Ed Stetzer, no, your article is not correct, and it is actually a lie. And so I would call upon you to retract your article and bear witness to the truth. Hope that's been a helpful commentary. We'll see you back next week.